Episode 17, Unification Party, Unification Headquarters. Here we are with co-host Adrian Blizzard. Adrian, welcome. How are you?
Jason, thank you for having me. Episode 17. I'm doing very well actually. Thank you. How are you doing this week, sir? Do you have a nice weekend?
Buddy, I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream. The only thing that I have to say is that other than Alberta separatism, which is only interesting for like one or two stories of it, there seems to be nothing else really going on that is
Canada-wise? Canada-wise. There's stuff going on.
Canada-wise. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying in the whole world,
yeah.
nothing's going on. Definitely not saying that.
I noticed a couple of things, like obviously we touched on a little last episode, Pierre shifting to Alberta,
Yes.
to his riding out there. And did you notice, I don't know if you heard about, remember how there was 94 electors on his ballot in Carleton? Well, that group is got 200 electors they're going for in the Battle Creek or River one, and where PR is now. And we were interviewed by, like, I think the CBC or whatever a few months back. I saw a clip today where they're like, "Oh, we're not partisan. We just didn't have time to target everybody. Like, we're not." Just like, okay, bud. Like, sure, bud. Like, but I did find it's like I think it's two brothers, and like one of them is like 19 years old at you going to U of W. So like I don't know about you, but like I chalk this up to boys will be boys. You know?
Yeah, probably. They're probably, just going up with some, it's like a couple of idiots with the Unification Party.
Muckraker at 19. Like I'm not hurting anybody. This is the thing is, I took my Adderall and read this book and found this friggin' technicality. It's my hunch, right? But still,
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I can't fault other troublemakers.
yeah, and like the King's coming. That kind of seems to be a thing. And
What's that?
tomorrow,
I never, whoa, slow down.
oh, the King is coming. The
King
King,
Charles.
King Charles, the King of Canada, as he was referred to today in the Globe and Mail by a reporter. The King.
Why did I find having a queen not that big of a deal, but the idea that I have a king sickens me.
Well, you probably saw that portrait he got made after he was ordained king or whatever, and it was like him looking like the devil, like with all red canvas. Like, as a matter of fact, I'll find it. Do you recall the?
No, I know the picture, but you can get it. I know there's something more visceral. It's not King Charles himself.
But even just think about the role of a woman versus the role of a man on like a visceral level. Like, you think of a woman, you think of your grandma, you think of your mother, you think, it's very loving and kind and hugging. You think of men, you think of like war, you think of dad yelling, I think maybe it's just that. Like
No, I think it's that.
Also with King, you may probably associate it with war a lot more. Not saying queens don't go to war.
For me, not me, I'm just saying I'm not talking what other people do. I'm saying me myself. I'm saying that, like, again, you're right with the queen. There's a motherly, like, you would do your duty for the queen in a motherly way, like to protect a mother. But a king, it feels like you have to do what you have to do what you're told. The king's telling you what to do.
Just make the picture big. Can you see the pic? I'm trying to make this thing big. And
yeah, I can see it there. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he looks like the devil. It's just red.
Well, it doesn't help. It looks like flame. It's not a. If that's not ominous to you, I don't know what is, my friend. Like that's not the first picture I would.
Sure, I guess. But, but we already know he's a freak.
He's coming to do the throne speech at the end of the month.
I never heard anything about it.
Well, now you know. Now you've heard it, and that's what's happening. It's big. It's big deal, relatively. I think it's always a big deal whenever the Royals come. The real question is will Harry be there? I think that's what we all want to know. Well,
yeah, I don't know.
So will Meghan bring the kid? But as well, Carney is meeting with Trump today. If you're watching this on Tuesday, and like, did you see Trump's response when he was asked about Mr. Carney's visit?
You're gonna say something along the lines like he didn't know why he was coming, but let's check it out.
Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want.
The Canadian Prime
And, but he was also, I think, I saw Trump was peppered by a reporter talking about the 51st state stuff, and like not there, like it was like a sit-down interview. I don't know exactly what the outlet was, but it was one of the mainstream media ones. And like he basically was calling us out for like being he's like they're the lowest contributor to their military, like out of anybody, out of everybody.
Yeah, but he's been saying that's an old soundbite. He's been saying that same
No,
thing.
but then he's like,
Subsidized 200
he
billion.
brought up, he called it what it was. He's like, they're just assuming we're going to defend them. They're just assuming that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and then he's
And
like,
then he said, yeah, we will.
we
Yeah.
will. But like, come on, like, please pretend like you did. Like, you're trying. Which I love. Like, you just gotta like that. Because even as a Canadian, like I mentioned a few videos back about, I've wondered for a long time, like over a decade, about why we're not more passionate about the Arctic, like the Russians were. You know, where they have like small villages and factory and bases up there and stuff, where you know it wouldn't be that hard to do. And anyways, I just says to maybe we'll get that. You know, and I did see something today about it's not out of the question that the Conservatives work with Carney on some legislation, which like I was like talking to you on the weekend about how like he could simply just govern with all the parties on different legislation and like maybe actually make the people who didn't vote for him not so angry at it, which in turn, like I heard the case today someone was making like Carney's governing like he's running for re-election. He doesn't want to lose the moderates. Sounding pretty conservative.
Yeah, but how can he? I mean,
which I'm not mad about. I can't blame him. I would be doing the same.
no, but how can he, with his deeply held climate views and climate fanaticism, like none of that gels with decreasing prices for your average person and increasing jobs in a resource-rich country. Those seem to be diametrically opposed.
Another thing that's diametrically opposed, there was a $9 billion Alberta oil company acquired by Suncor today. Sunoco, an American oil company. So it's like, wait, I thought we were Canadian. I thought we were Canada. We're like, okay, we're still letting the Americans just come on in and buy everything, which again, I don't mind. But apparently some people did mind. It's just, yeah, it's business as usual. It's what it is. Like everything, nothing. Again, like he might be a climate hippie, but maybe he was just espousing those views because like that was a way to like the way to make money for a decade.
No, well, you know, that's an interesting thing to say. Like maybe. I mean,
you got that big.
Yeah, no, but maybe he's more interested in this new challenge in governing and getting reelected, and maybe having a legacy that instead of being praised by backroom agents and the finance world that knows about him, he wants that adoration from the general public, and so prime ministership is the way to do that. And he wants to leave a legacy.
It's like think about it. It's like a new comedian coming in after a guy getting yelled at. It's like you couldn't ask for a better thing.
Ooh, like, yeah.
I'm gonna love it.
Yeah.
That guy. Like, the bar is low. So
yeah. So maybe that could be a good insight there, Adrian, thinking he's more interested. So he's willing to economy go good, he get reelected. So he does what it takes. What he did before is what it took to, let's say, help with the 2008 whatever crisis. The next wave of what was good for him and his company and investments was climate alarmism. And now, as leader, he will do what is best for the economy. Well, that's a nice optimistic thought. It's not, though. It's like we have to count on that his principles are weak and he's wishy-washy.
Please be a flake. Please be a flake. So far, it's not out of question.
Well, that part's no good, I guess.
You know, from like a human nature and like a political perspective, most politicians are those things. Wishy-washy flakes. Like turn their like run by opinion polls. So, and again, like I said, like it wouldn't take much to be like to gain some support from the middle that maybe people who voted for like yes they might if he say governs more like the old liberals did which is more to the middle he might lose some of the NDP vote in the future but he will gain like those like 4 to 5% ridings he lost in other areas if he doesn't do and again it's so Canada's been so decimated over a decade it literally would just be like Carney is cutting income tax by 3% and government workforce and pay raises for the next decade. Like, oh, great. He just won election for the next 6 elections. Like people are like, oh, he's just doing things that we kind of need to keep the ship going. Because that's the thing. Canadian
Yeah.
conservatives aren't like
No,
conservatives.
but can you think like he's got his 4 daughters, all, some of them are award-winning like climate activists. His wife is a climate like they're a family of climate loonies. How do you square that circle? It's not possible. I mean, I like where you're going. I like what you're thinking. Like it's a neat idea that he's more interested in this, the glory, than he is than his principles. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It just seems pretty consistent on his principles.
Well, the thing of it is too, like, I don't know. I think he's got such a firebrand and a wild card with Trump relatively that like Trump could do something. I know I've said it many times, and I hope he does. Where he's like, I offer like green cards to Canadians without criminal records who can land a job. If you got a job and come to the border, like call this number and we'll have an interview with you. I think that would just like that would be the death knell of Canada combined with like more green legislation and taxes obviously right and government control that like does nothing in boondoggles and just is a waste it's like driving a car with a big sail on it. Like, ooh, we're so fuel efficient. We got the government's sail. Like, well, what if we take that sail then? Maybe we go, like, no. We need a bigger sail. We need a bigger sail, and then we need to yell at each other when the car slows down. Anyways, it's a terrible
I
analogy.
mean, but that's no, but I mean, essentially that's America's like maneuver, right? Go to
Heavy sail. Compare.
to go, to offer their lifestyle to the cream of the crop of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So this would
So
just be a fast track.
dreaming. But like, I think.
Well, I know I wouldn't be able to go. I got to stay here in my little cabin.
Yeah, but you could build another little cabin like over the border and have both.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you have winter.
they don't have the administrative freedom that we have here.
Yeah, but you could just as easily like we could go halvesies on like like an RV in Jacksonville or the Keys and just like have a place to winter. It would be
It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all.
that's not when the hurricanes come. But anyways, yeah. So that's going on. I think Pierre moved to Alberta. Pretty sure that happened. But yeah, there really isn't too much going on. I think the big talk too is people are like, oh, I don't think he's going to form a coalition government. Like Carney's not going to get people to come over from the other parties to join him. But I think that that's like not true. There's no question that like there's 2 or 3 of the 7 NDPers that would be willing to take the $110,000 a year pay raise, and well,
Is that what's on offered? If they cross the floor,
it's like 220 to like 330 or something like that. It's something. It's not bad, and it's for 4 years, and as well, you're like a hero if the job is done right. Like relatively, you might even if you're not a hero to the people in Canada. I'm sure afterwards somewhere, some way, shape, or form, you'll get a nice job at some think tank or whatnot outside of Ottawa there. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like if you take one for the team, we got you.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the death knell of the NDP, like indefinitely, or if that will return in a significant way. I don't know.
Well, it depends. That's up to the Liberals, right? If the Liberals keep governing like socialists, that's the big factor. If the Liberals,
I would say no. I would say the big factor, like people are saying, like, oh, Pierre dropped the ball or not, but he has like more vote than I think Mulrooney had when they had a majority. Like he didn't lose. Like he didn't lose his voting base. Like fail. It's that Carney gathered all like a coalition
You
of
know,
lefties and still just squeaked by.
and the PPC took 3 ridings that would have went most likely conservative. I know we're just being facetious, assuming those areas that needed 200 votes but got 800 PPC, all 800 would have voted. But like most likely they would have voted conservative, right? Obviously they're politically active. That's why they vote VPC. Typically, if you're voting for one of those fringe parties,
But that's what I'm suggesting. I'm just suggesting it will always take. The world seems to be getting more like just two-sided, less coalition, less than this. Like I was saying a couple of back, is that there'll always be the need for the NDP and the Liberals, the left, we'll call it, that collective group. And of course, there might be a fringe NDP and there might be a fringe People's Party, but essentially it's going to take this neighborhood like it does in the States of 40 to 43% of the vote to win. And the other party's getting 40, 41. And that seems to be what happens roughly south of the border and other places. So there won't be room for an NDP in the way that there was in the past. My prediction.
well, hypothetically, you're not too off base, but like hypothetically, Carney governs more centristly, back to the roots of the liberal, of what a liberal means, like classical liberal style. Then the NDP has a purpose again. But I think in Canada, if the Liberals keep governing extreme left, the NDP will turn into like a Green Party. Well, they're going to get like 2 Northern Ontario ridings, like 1 Northern Manitoba riding. Like they're just ridings where like everyone likes that guy. It's like, no, that's our guy. That's our
Yeah.
like him, and
Yeah.
type of thing. Like so, but who knows? Yeah, again, the NDP at the end of the day are a shell of their former selves, and yeah, they need to do some rebuilding. It's also really going to come down to who they pick for their new leader, right? They could pick some like.
Well, yeah, for sure. If they get some real dynamic person.
Most likely,
But I would imagine
identity politics people, so they'll probably.
right, so they'll hamstrung. They'll be hamstrung of their pool to choose from.
Yeah, it'll be a female, and she will call a lot of things racist, but so did Jagmeet. So it just is what it is. But yeah, I'm not too worried. I mean, what was the thing? On a side note of good news that I wanted to point out, a little fun fact I learned today. Do you know Kian Betsky? Like he used to work for Rebel News, Kian Betsky, and he was like, he works for Juno News now. He's a reporter, and either way, like he's, the Rebel News guys are always getting like kicked out, and they've been like harassed by the Liberals relative to like they've been harassed. So either way, the RCP are always a little rougher with Rebel News, seems to be, than everybody else. But I thought his dad actually won a riding. He's I'm assuming conservative MP. I don't know much more than that, but I kind of thought that was cool because like Trudeau used the cops to get him like out of question periods and stuff like that a lot. But it's like, well, now that like his dad's going to be there and he's going to have to get to hold Mark Carney to account in Parliament, I thought that was kind of a nice like turn of events. You go from like getting arrested by the RCMP to like your dad's now going to be like questioning the government on freedom, because there was something I saw today. People were hinting at with the King coming and like UK style politics, he was basically saying something along the lines of like American tech companies and like their free speech are basically just full of dens of xenophobia and anti-Semitism, and we're not going to allow it. Basically just saying like prepare for trouble. I'll let you hear from him. 28 seconds.
Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong.
I will say I'm realizing now that definitely was from the election. But like people are equating that clip to like, okay, because like UK has got some like they're arresting old people for rude things on Facebook. Have you seen any of those videos, Jay? I'm sure.
I've heard talk of it. I haven't done a deep dive to know if it's like, I mean, apparently, I heard some commentator was talking about the number of political arrests for online, what insert any reason in Russia was a fraction of what it was in Britain. So
Did you see the video out of Britain where the cops were like arresting the 12-year-old autistic girl for calling the nurse a lesbian? Or the
I thought
cop,
it was a police officer. Yeah, that was a year or two ago.
which again, like one 12-year-old girl getting arrested for saying a word to a cop is too many 12-year-old girls getting arrested for saying a word to a cop.
Yeah,
Like,
but okay, I know. I mean,
like
but
mental health.
let me without knowing everything because obviously I wasn't there. But we've all seen enough of cop videos on YouTube to know that if you were to see the autistic girl, the 30 seconds, no, the 30 minutes before the 10 seconds of the end of that, where she's arrested, and that happens to coincide with a lesbian comment, but if she had been smashing plates and stomping around and shouting profanities or whatever, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's what happened, but you understand the point I'm making.
The context.
We don't exactly. And so I'm just saying with all of these things, like, is it just someone over in Britain tomorrow goes online and says X, Y, and Z, and then next day there's someone at their door? Or is this people who have been repeatedly told to for something these
Yeah, but
the online words, those online words in conjunction with some other real life activities like bullying outside of an abortion clinic. I'm just saying, for example, I'm creating scenarios. I'm not talking about anything in particular. And then that in conjunction with, I would have to know what the real situation is. And that I don't know.
well, I think we showed the clip a few episodes back. Maybe we did, of the 3 German ministers being interviewed talking about like, oh yeah, it's actually worse if you say something online because it's there forever. And you're just
Yeah,
like,
I've seen for sure. And
Europe, like you're getting a little fascistic for my liking.
I'm not suggesting that there's not an attempt to curb speech and scare people into better behavior. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it's hard to determine the truth of these things because I watch enough right stuff and left stuff, and both of them are exaggerating against the t'other. And it's hard to determine what is legit. I'm sure, have there been some overreach in the Britain with regards to what they would call free speech or we would call free speech, which apparently they don't have a right to, we don't have a right to comparatively,
No, only
like
America.
the United States. Yeah.
Only.
So I don't know what to say about all of that, but I do know that it seems like, I know they had the Australian. Okay, here's a counter argument. They're talking about Farage being like, it's always been a two-party system more or less over there.
Labor
Now
and
becoming
party.
becoming a third party and it becoming like a factor and in the mix. So I'm saying in this day and age that the liberals and conservatives might have to be a two-party representative, and that just seems to be the way things are going. But in counter argument to that, right in front of us is what's going on in Britain and how Farage is doing. Kind of interesting.
Well, with Farage, what Farage is the same thing that we had here. It's the same thing they had all over Europe. It's populism. It's the people who are sick and tired. In England, it's similar to Canada. With mass immigration, seems to be a big one. It seems to be a lot worse there. And like obviously economic concerns just add brush fire to any political climate, no matter who's in power. But because I think I'm not a scholar of the English economy, but I think they're probably similar to Canada, like not as bad maybe, but I don't think they've been growing economically as much as they once were.
No, I think there's a lot of doom and gloom about old Britannia.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting too. You saw that the re-election in Romania, they got rid of the old Georgescu guy, the populist guy, and then the new populist guy got even more votes.
Yeah, I saw that he was supposed to get like it looked like over 43% of the vote or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, over he was supposed to win by like I think over 8% or something. Like I was looking at it on Polymarket like last night, the Romanian, and I was like, I don't know enough about this to wager on this. Get out of here. That's all I know. But so did they arrest him?
Well, not yet, but it's interesting to see. There's like, and I mean, there's a mirror of our like the same rhetoric. It seemed anti-Trump rhetoric they used against the conservative guy in
It's
us in Australia, and they seem to have run the exact same playbook, or it sounds eerily familiar when you see what happened down there.
it's
And they
it's
just voted in Albanese. Well, there seem, but different countries are winning in different places. We seem to be us and Australia, Canada and Australia seem to be on the road of
chirped him.
like,
He
well, at
left.
least, yeah, trying this leftist experiment at the very least.
Yeah, it's well, people say about Australians, it's like, well, they always wonder, they're like, well, it was a nation founded by prisoners. Like, you think they would love freedom, but it's like, yeah, but the other half was guards. So
Yes.
the guards are running the show, or the prisoners. Pick your poison. But yeah, yeah, and even during like COVID lockdowns, I wasn't too impressed with the way the Canadian government handled things compared to like other countries like Germany and Sweden and America. But looking at Australia kind of gave me like pause of like, well, at least we're not doing that. Could be worse. Like they seem to be a little overhanded. Like they seem to love their state too, just like the Canadians. Like govern me harder, please. Seems to be our motto and their motto.
Yeah, there seems to be a parallel between the two. I mean, I guess we're both, colonies.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And they're both. I think they're still part of the Commonwealth, just like we are. So I would assume that means like the king is the head of their state. I haven't looked at their constitution, but gun to my head, maybe I'm wrong.
well, or at least in the same sort of figurehead way that we are, Governor General and all.
Yeah, you say figurehead, but that's still the head of like he's just the governor general is the king's representative, right?
Well, I understand that, but I mean, I know there are powers and this and that, but I mean, they're rarely. It's like there can be rules in the book that says the Governor General can intercede and do this and that, but they don't. They just rubber stamp what we want to do, the will of the.
Yeah, more for now.
Well,
Why not?
yeah, for sure.
We don't want no T wars. Let's let the people feel like they're in control. Let's let the pigs paint the pen.
Well, that could be true. That could be true.
But yeah,
Well, I don't know, but okay, so let's get back to this Carney thing. So let's say Carney decides that his principles don't matter. He's more interested in, building these homes, spending the money, being, starting a Canadian Mount Rushmore with his face on it, on Banff or something. That's what his goal is. So that leads to a whole other conversation. Is like,
it would be on Banff too. Like fuck you, Alberta.
yeah,
Like, he would do that.
but
Bill would do that.
how can like even with like you mentioned before, like the federal government has burned their bridges with the big players that can build pipelines, so they're not even interested in playing these long-term games. And I know that they're going to open up like $26 billion, I think, in developer financing, but it's impossible to build an affordable home these days. I'm not suggesting they can't build bulk homes quickly with lots of money, but even that's a challenge. No workforce. I don't know how this affordable.
I got it for you. If you look at it, like my friend actually owns a house construction business, and I would say, I think if you look at the numbers, there's a shocking percentage of like a new house built, say in the Greater Toronto area, that is just government fees and taxes. I honestly, just off the top of my head, I want to say it's like 20%. Like
No,
I know,
let's ask. I'm gonna ask Perplexity right now. You keep talking.
I know to break ground at a job in Hamilton. I don't know the exact size of the job, but it was just a person's house. It might have been a large house, but it was just like $76,000 in paperwork and payments to the government just to like put a shovel in the ground and get like all the permits. So, and I'm sure my guess would be like maybe it was like a $1.4 million house at the end of the day. Maybe it was, but it's still like that's still a lot of money. And actually, the government, in fact, was late in that particular job for my friend with the paperwork. So like the trades were backed up. It was a pain in the ass. So it's like not even they can't even take their money on time. So if my point to say is if the government of Canada wants to become the house builder aficionado of Canada, it's actually in fact them. If they just remove their foot out of the way from tripping everybody, it would cut the costs down substantially. Maybe not enough to like give everybody a house, but enough that like, that adds up.
So in Canadian cities like Toronto, these costs can account for 26 to 31% of the total price of a new home.
What?
What
Why don't we have houses? Why can't we
is the
build anywhere?
average cost in Toronto? A home. So the average cost in Toronto of a new home is 1.5 million. So 30% of that.
Exactly.
So let's say, 400,000.
300, yeah, $520,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. Why don't we have
Yeah.
houses, Jay? $520,000. Do you know what you can do with $520,000 in rural New Brunswick?
More.
Start a new Walmart. Like, maybe not that, but like, it's wild. Like, or rural Alberta, or even rural Texas. Yeah. Now.
No, but even look like right now, like rough rates on mortgages, it's costing you $500 a month for every $100,000 in mortgage, 5-year term, 25-year amortization. So that's roughly the money. So even just the taxes and fees cost, if you could get the cost of a house in Toronto or a place to live down the 500,000, just the fees cost of it, it's still a $2,500 after tax a month payment. Plus you'd have, that'd be cost you $4,000 a month to live there with taxes, utilities, internet,
Which is
this, that.
Toronto. Like, people, I guarantee you, every single person in the city of Toronto, if that was the cost, would be like, "Yay!" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, absolutely. But we're talking the whole concept of affordable is a joke.
well, I'm simply saying if the government if it's going to become the builder, if it just itself gets out of the way for itself, it could maybe, which it won't, because like the Canadian government would never like hire Madame and Reed Holmes, like the founders of those companies, to be like, we need you to run this file. They're going to hire a friend from college to like be the minister of housing.
The administration, the administration boondoggle and slush funds that will come from that 26 billion will do zero for affordability. Yeah, zero.
It'll go from 31% of a house in taxes to 37. And
no, they need to completely re-engineer the way people live if they want to do anything to do with affordability.
I think a lot of people are already kind of realizing that. You know what I mean? Like you can't go out.
But it's not
like you used to be able to.
No, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it's irrelevant. Forget going out and eating. When the taxes when the bureaucratic costs of a house are $500,000, it doesn't matter that you had a Swiss chalet lunch, right? So right,
chicken.
Right. So I'm saying is like you and I have chose to move to rural New Brunswick so we could have less bureaucracy, so we could build small houses without any government intervention and, legally. But the only way we can do that is because the government is out of the way. So other people can't do that. The vast majority, there's very few places, even in the States, I've seen some places in the West Texas desert and Arizona beyond, so far from cities that they are bordering Indian land or whatever. They're not near anything. Like this is an anomaly. It's not people can live in their vans and.
Are you talking about those houses in New Mexico or Texas, like built on like out of tires and stuff, or like?
Yeah, exactly. Places like that where they're beyond, like there's no building department.
Yeah,
Whenever you see something neat, it's not allowed. Like that didn't happen anywhere.
yeah,
Like
for
that
sure.
there's
The
bureaucracy.
government is not creative, that is for sure, or flexible.
No, no, and I understand. Like, I mean, I completely get it. It's just,
Well, their job is
I
black and
get,
white. They need to define black and white. So they can't be like, look, you can build your house out of tires because you have 140 IQ, but we can't let Michelle here do it because she's gonna like let it implode on her by cutting corners, and her and her family's gonna die.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I get it, but I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I mean,
We
I'm
this
not,
like this is like rural living is the tax shelter for poor people. You know what I mean? It's like this is as close to hiding money offshore for a multimillionaire where you're like, look, we're not breaking any rules. We're still following rules, but there's just less of them here. Whereas like there's
yes.
same with our prime minister. Keeps his money in the Caribbean because there's less restrictions. So yeah, no, and that's what it kind of is. So that's why. But I do think like, you and I have a huge freedom bias because not everyone likes freedom. A lot of people like certainty, and that unfortunately comes at a cost of autonomy. So I think like a lot of the people in the city would maybe take that like they would lose their freedom willingly. You know what I mean? As long as they knew that there was going to be brekkie in the morning and someone was going to maybe clean up the garbage outside. They didn't have to worry about it. But again, I don't know, man. I just thought of how much money the house thing. Now that was Toronto, so that's the worst. That number, 31%. That's just wild. Are they the worst in the country? Can you ask the AI that? Is maybe Vancouver? It wouldn't shock me if Vancouver was
No,
worse.
no, it's going to be the same everywhere. I've been down this road before.
Okay.
I've looked this stuff
Sorry,
up
drag
before.
that up, but that is like, what are we doing here, people? like,
No, but I even said like I've mentioned this before, but I read an article within the last couple of years, and they were talking about a northern Ontario town,
you mentioned
something
the
like
yeah.
yeah, 1,500 lots, and they you could have it for $1,000, and then they did the costing of the building of the house, which is 1,000 square feet. They were basing it on. It was still going to cost you like $260,000 to put 1,000 square foot house
And the
in
million
northern
dollar.
Ontario with no jobs. Right. So even that house is what 2,000. So that's still a rent. Oh, that's great of only like 1,012, maybe $1,300 a month plus taxes plus utilities, blah 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 blah. So you go, oh, so you can still like oh, that's great, but like that's ridiculous. That's still not affordable. Affordable for single people who are low income is like $600 a month. Like
Well,
if you're
yeah,
making
right there for sure. If you can, but that's where like the
like
pot.
this is the kind of no, but when I'm talking, but that's what we're talking when we're talking about the affordability crisis for housing. That's what we're talking about. That's the vast number of people in the government in the country, not the government, in the country that need like affordable housing. Is they need to be in that $800 a month. Like nobody works 40 hours a week. You'd be lucky to get 30 hours at minimum wage is $450 a week times four, even $500 a week times 4.5 is 2,250 after your tax, 1,800. Like,
Yeah, and I'm thinking because I was thinking right away like even that like the utility costs for these people, come wintertime, it's just going to be, yeah, like, it's just is what it is. Like, because you can't have everybody in the city of Toronto, like, burning wood.
no, no,
That,
that's what I'm saying. So even if Carney's got his best intentions, and like, I don't know how they fix this, like how they fix this affordability. They've inflated the price of housing to the point of it's either crash it, which destroys a million people,
is happening.
or or they leave it alone and then some other chunk of millions of people. They crash the market and millions of people that hurts them drastically.
Yeah, and never tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if they don't crash it to a more reasonable, or is it going to be like you see the pictures in Toronto at the turn of the century, a big old house with 6 metal beds in a in a room with 6 men sleeping in those beds, and that's that's going to be the future for a good chunk of. But see, but even if that was the case, you wouldn't be allowed to do it because you'd have to be a rooming house, and even rooming houses.
Like a lot of in a lot of the new Canadian community, they had the problem with the census because you didn't know how many
Yeah,
people.
yeah, but it's happening illegally. But
Sure.
I'm saying even the rules in the rooming house require, like, you have to have, even if a room is shared, the room has to be a certain size. I know there's room, like,
For
each
sure.
person needs
There's a
60
reason
square
rooming
feet.
houses aren't everywhere. It sounds like is what it is.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, it's not an easy proposition.
It simply boils down to like the government needs to just pull back some regulations. Like it's like, or we could
No,
just
but it's not. You're just saying it's like, okay, so let's take 20% off those government regulations.
okay
So instead of the $500,000 more it costs you to build a house in Toronto, it
400.
only costs you 400,000. Oh, thanks, Adrian. You've saved the
But it's not
problem
even.
solved.
But it's not even about that. It's that way because it's like to the rooming house where it was like, okay, so like why is it mandatory 50 by 20 square feet for this? It's like, oh, if we look into it, maybe look, there's some stuff we look into where it's like, oh, that was actually just an arbitrary thing. There's no real
No,
reason.
but it is. It's a things like sanitary reasons, and there are reasons why we don't stack people bunk beds in a room. There's sanitary reasons, and there's enough washrooms and facility and sewer facility from neighborhoods to the center place where it deals with sewage and electrical capacity and plugs and hair dryers and so many people using the electrical grid that it starts fires. And
Parking. Yeah,
there's
okay. Well, actually, these people don't have
yeah
cars.
there's a million reasons why.
It is a mess, and there's a myriad of solutions and there's a myriad of problems.
It just says connecting, so just hold for a second.
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw
we're
that.
good.
I think we're back. Yeah. No, there's a myriad of solutions and there's a myriad of for the myriad of
No,
problems.
but there's not. You keep just saying these platitudes like that's going to solve. Well, all we need to do is cut the thing.
No,
Well, there's a
no, but in
myriad
my
of
mind,
there's a myriad of
I say it
there's a
like
myriad of there's a myriad of problems and there's a myriad of solutions. Well, all we got to
I'm
do
saying to
is
you, like if the
just
solution
gotta cut.
really
Just
is
gotta,
fire half the government for full stop, it's not going to happen. That's the solution, though. Fire half the government and cut the
but
red
that's
tape by
still
half.
that's still not the solution. Because you say cut the red tape by half. Okay, so instead of 500,000, it's 250,000. The point being, as even the 250,000 is too much for the low income to pay. So we're already down to like just 50% of the bureaucratic costs is too much. We haven't even bought one screw.
So you're saying we're all going to rent off BlackRock one day because they're the only ones who can afford.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying is there's like, my point is that Carney,
Stop.
even with giving us the benefit of the doubt, it's an impossible solution. Impossible. There's not the people to build it. There's not the people to afford it. Right? There's not the.
Well, to your point, all of that, and then you throw on there's not the willpower because if he is what he says he is, then that's the absolute last type of person you'd want in charge to remedy that problem. Because that person's
Well,
going to lovely
he even said
for control for the government.
when he did his report, or when he talked about his housing strategy, he said that they'd build houses, and he commented on, and greener than ever, like carbon footprint smaller, and
In construction,
yeah,
yeah.
greener than ever. Yeah. So now you're putting that bureaucratic layer on it as well.
My buddy who has a company read that report and was just like, what's this? This guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like, this is just wild. He's wild. Like, what did we run the generator off of sunshine and lollipops? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, it is just that. It's like we said, though. They're just going to pull it all inside to be built in the factory. Might happen to be his buddies that own the factory or Brookfield even. And they just happen to be 20% more neutral because the trucks aren't always driving around. Everything's right there in the factory. That'll be the pitch. We got
20% smaller.
both. Probably all the above, right? But like, and it does make sense. Like, if you're in the factory building the house, like, yeah, you're not setting up a generator everywhere. You got all the infrastructure right there. There's not all these like going to get that. You forgot that
See,
part. But still,
but even that doesn't make sense because even the modular homes, unless they can stack them building style, like that's where you get your best value is we need condensed infrastructure. You don't have people spread out into, you know, modular trailers on, you know, hundreds of acres. You have 100-foot buildings on 10 acres. That's how you build things efficiently and provide services efficiently. So even that modular house, unless they're building them stackable, it's not, that's not even a reasonable solution.
I wouldn't put it past them. Like, there could be some like little like IKEA thing with like they do use steel girders and you just boop 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 and then you put your little front facet on and everyone has stairs to walk down covered for the winter. And
Well, this would be cool if they were talking about these kinds of things, but they're not. And then obviously they can't build. Okay, so let's just say they've come up with the great cool idea, the factory assembly thing. So little Susie homemaker in Scarborough has
lose their
just
business.
last week bought her $1.5 million 2-bedroom wartime on a small lot, 30-foot lot. And then now tomorrow something opens at the end of supersonic new train line out, you know, off the train system to this new magical land of these houses where there are 180,000. Like, of course they can't be.
I think in that situation, I think at the very moment, in that situation you painted, Susie is going to sell that house and hopefully break even now. However, I still think like there will always be demand for like character. Not everyone's going to love the cheap pod. There will be, but it'll be a privilege to have that 2-bedroom wartime. No, the 2-bedroom wartime, sorry, I apologize. I was thinking Victorian. 2-bedroom wartime, yeah, those are the cheap houses after the war. That yeah, she'll be happy to break even, but like people might prefer those like, or pay a premium, or they'll probably just all get torn down over time, and then the premium will go back up because there'll be less of them, and they'll be torn down to make the little pods. It'll be a mix, like everything. There'll be change. There's always change, but you are right. Like there's nothing. Nobody's having these grandiose conversations on a national level, like just spitballing like a TED talk.
I mean, Trump was talking a little bit about creating new cities on federal land.
Elon
I
created
thought
this
it was.
week. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. It's actually what is it called?
Starship,
What is it? Star Town or something.
Starship
Welcome
Town.
to Star Town. Yeah.
I liked it.
Launch
I
Town.
know I haven't looked at it or checked it on a map, but like, I mean, I'm not completely opposed to the corporate takeover because again, like I've been joking for years that like the corporations run the world, and like maybe the governments are doing such a bad job all over the West, so that when the corporations take the mask off and let us know they run the world in 15 years, we're kind of like, thank God, because you're at least honest and like reliable, unlike these silly politicians. Like I'll come into your city and
See,
put
but the problem with when the private businesses run the cities, they'll become enclaves. There's no room in those private cities for homeless and
well,
and the town drunk and the like. Those problems need to be set out to the outer rims.
episode where the homeless guy became a hammock or got post office boys or whatever. Remember evil Bond one? Um, when Homer goes to that maid town, like he gets poached by another like nuclear plant. Turns out the nuclear plant owner's like an evil villain who's trying to like take over the world. Anyway, but yeah, no. I mean, obviously, like but there's no perfect anything. Like everything kind of needs that constant balance to find a like kind of ebb and flow as humanity finds its way. And like I think right now we're kind of gone to the other way where it's like we have the bureaucrats with like unlimited carte blanche of power and no restriction, and that's not working. Like even like today, I heard David Eby. He was like stopped passing this bill like last month or whatever that basically would allow him to like overrule any environmental impact and like make study or like and make any spending changes he needed to make without asking the house or whatever. And like the conservative guy did the interview, he was like saying like we stopped him, but like, now he's got these two other bills where he just basically weaseled back in these policies where he's basically just trying to be like a little monarch. relative or desperate, whatever you want to call it. I think there might be a case because, like, at least at the beginning of the corporatization of the world, it'll be competitive. The end might not be so fun, but the beginning will be. They'll have to wow you.
Well, yeah, they'll have to wow you, but I would just see like I mean, Japan's the forebearer, right? The four, it
Yeah,
it tells the
down.
future.
Yeah,
Yeah, and real estate's never got more expensive in Tokyo, but the countryside is devoid of life, and
no, it did.
houses are falling apart.
And that's why their economy crashed. Fun fact for you, in the 80s, right? The temple in downtown Japan, like the Prince's Temple or King's Temple, was valued at more than all the land in California. And that was like, oh shit, this is a bubble. And that's ever since then Japan's been kind of in a recession since, like, I don't know, 86 or 87.
For sure, but the point remains that in Japan right now, not compared to California's real estate, even though the population is decreasing and everyone's still moving to the center of Tokyo, Tokyo just keeps getting bigger and the countryside just keeps getting emptier.
True.
And how that relates to us is you'll have the only opportunities will be as these cities compete, right? These Elons and who other will create these super cities, and you'll have to be like a tech genius to go work and live there. And then the countryside.
They'll need people to fix the robots and, like, do stand up at night time for the workers. They're not going to want to see AI comedians all the time.
No, but
there'll be other people. There'll be service-based.
The point is that I was making the point of you need to be part of the productive class.
You need to have a job.
Yeah, there'll be but what works now that creates a dystopian, like.
Yeah, but if I make
Dubai surveilled city. No, let me finish. That gives you a Dubai-style surveilled city where they can basically, if you're a foreigner or doing any kind of unproductive thing, they basically you're out of the country in like a millisecond, even if you've worked there for 40 years, like that's it. And that will be the same thing. Like you'll go and work and you'll have been, let's say, for instance, a productive worker at Space Fort Town, Elon's place, for 30 years, but have a mental breakdown for whatever reason. And then the next thing you know, you don't have to, go home, but you just can't stay here. And that's what you'll see.
Well, which is probably true if that does happen. But I would say if that was like no one going in, that you would just like adjust your finances accordingly. We'd be like, yeah, like, I'll work for you, but you guys will fire me at the drop of a hat. So, like, you have to have a savings. Like, I need to, like.
No, absolutely. But what you see is like Japan is you have the countryside is like houses are falling apart. And like, for instance, with population decline, like, for instance, you take a city, it's hard for people to visualize it in the worldwide sense. And then you could even say like, oh, well, what does population decline have to do? Our country's population is increasing, and it will be for the foreseeable future. Insert any country where anybody lives right now. But if your countryside is depleting and you live in a town that has a population of 60,000 that's being emptied to the major cities, and then all of a sudden you had a property tax base that was maintaining the infrastructure of a city of 60,000 people with roads and water lines and this and that, and then that population drops to 40,000 because everybody moves to the bigger cities or these super centers that start to establish themselves, then it just becomes a doom loop, right? So everybody will suffer. I mean, not everyone in the rural fingers of the unproductive places will suffer.
Well, I would say I saw a story one time not too far long ago about a Japanese, I believe it was a train route that basically it was up north, I think on the northern island, and like it finally stopped running, but like it didn't stop because there was like one girl who like took the train to school from this like northern region. So the whole train ran just to like, I don't even think like she was like, maybe she was aware when she was the only one who ever got on it that this train was just running for her. But basically, like, my point is to say like Japan doesn't like leave their people hanging. So if like the corporate future is like the way Japan is, as they've been in the last 20 years with like their mild decline in their population issues, that's not that bad. Like it's not like because I was even thinking when you were talking about like there's no solution to the housing problem. Like if we were more flexible with like Japan, where like Japan in the sense where they have those capsule hotels, which I know they're not glorious, and I know like people don't need to be living in a capsule for the rest of their life, like little pods or whatever, but like there's a time and a place, like people, go through phases of like making money and not and making money and not, but there would be a time and a place where like if you could get a place, yeah, it's just a capsule, but there's a shower and a locker, and it's like $350 a month, and you can keep like a bag there. That affords you a level of comfort that allows you to like get your shit together. Maybe you guys did it for 6 months, but like you're gonna work, I guarantee you, and save everything you can so you can not. But we don't have that like capsule hotel style, like you're saying, boarding house option here
We
in.
have none of those things.
Yeah, like that's where it's
We have you better have your shit together and can afford a base level apartment, or you live in a tent in a traffic circle.
Degenerate, and the government will pay for everything. So there's no middle.
No, there's no government paying. Nobody's getting everything paid for by the government. That doesn't even exist.
Subsidized housing. It's not prevalent.
Add it all up.
The people who
maybe some single moms with like 3 kids, but there's no single dude in this province gets $540 a month and $570 a month in welfare or something.
But again,
you can't get a room for under 600.
That goes to my red taping, what I was kind of saying, like thinking out the box, like ideas like that. You got to get creative, but like think about
But the problem is, it's not red tape. It's for the reason. This is the point I'm keep stressing. It can't casually be dismissed by red tape. Like you can't call intensive sprinkler and fire alarm systems red tape.
No, right? Why do they work in Japan?
No, but because they had a infrastructure system in place that allowed that to exist, and then they got used to it before they created a comprehensive building department rules and regs system that requires
capsule hotels
Yeah, right there. And yes, because they have
with fire sprinklers and all that stuff. Yeah.
No, but right, because they have the template. Right? Like, okay, so that's a good question, because it's that again, but it's not. But that's not how it works here.
There's even like when it comes to like vending machine restaurants, like a lot of things that work in Japan, reasons why they don't work other places, I think a big part of it is Japan is very homogenous, and like they have a very respectful culture. So like, you could leave like a bunch of stuff out, and like in Japan, for example, I found this out the other day with drunk people. The cops actually have a rule with drunk people that they're supposed to treat them like children, and you can't arrest them for like anything like outlandish they say. Like the cop's job is to like take you home if they find you drunk on the streets, like you're a lost child, because like it's just a different culture, right? Like, so even when it comes to like the vending machine restaurant, like I would be hard pressed to assume if I had a vending machine restaurant in downtown Toronto that like a lot of people would clean up after themselves and like maybe not smash my machines. You know what I mean? To the point where I can make my margin off my $2 noodle bowl. That like, whereas like they're just, I think that's a big part of it. Like because even those capsule hotels, you see them, they're like hostels, which we have here. We have hostels, but like you stay at a hostel for a month in Canada, you might as well be renting your own apartment. Like it's not like that.
Yeah, well, it's insane.
Yeah.
But it is. It has to do with like, for instance, you look at these tiny homes on wheels, right? They're allowed only by some sort of grandfathered trailer type rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowed to exist, to have like a loft bedroom, because it's not a home. But a home can't have a loft bedroom. So you can't build a legal apartment that would be tiny with any kind of sleeping arrangement. You have to go up, some kind of like lofty ladder. And a hallway has to be 3 feet wide, and you have to build every hallway that's big enough 3 feet wide to accommodate a wheelchair, right? And then there has to be an air exchanger right? That takes the air in and out so we don't lose so much of the heat and have to spend X number of dollars on. And then the roof has to be R40 insulation and the wall has to be, so to build a cavity that's big enough to fit our whatever 32 insulation in the wall, you need a 2x6 wall, not a 2x4, but you can use a 2x6 wall. But if you put some sort of insulation cladding on, like the list just adds up. Like even forget the like they've created a bureaucracy of building. Like they have to create every rule that assumes that every house is the same in every situation. So the best rule in the best situation is that every house gets acoustic-seal, duct tape, and whatever. When there might be different, they just can't do. They can't be exceptions to the rule because it's all about liability. Well, oh,
That's it.
building, right?
And to the
So
point, I know this is near the end of our show here, but I think that's the bigger issue that we've had in our society that nobody really talks about is like we got bureaucracy to death, but when push comes to shove and something does happen, there is no accountability. Like, like you see it with all these accidents that happen. It's like, oh, poof, we got to like hide the person that did it. And then we're like, the union will put out a statement a week later and be like, technical error. We've moved so-and-so down to this thing. Don't worry. Like, we're on it. But it's like, no, did like Emil not tighten a screw and the wheel fell off? Like, just tell us what happened. Like, and arrest Emil for like carelessness. And like, like there's no, it seems to be like we have to you have to pay insurance for this, insurance for that. But then when push comes to shove, they're like grinding you, needling you on. Did you really need that? I don't think you really need, I don't think this actually was our problem. It's like, there's no, you're needled to death, and then it's not even there to help you when you need it. Kind of is what I think a big part of our society's problems are.
yeah, well, all of it. I mean, you're right. You and I are not going to solve this problem tonight. But my prediction is, just as to close the show, I heard somebody say that minority governments usually don't last much longer than 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
if he does pull the 3 NDPers over, that's no longer a question.
yeah, well, I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Who wants the $110,000 pay raise? Good. But yeah, good talking with you, Jay. I've enjoyed it this week. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you later in the week.
Yeah, please like and subscribe and tell your friends. All right. Good night.
Wow!